Hello, Longhorn fans. I'm Tony, coming from Texas, clean to be exact. And coming from El Paso is Mac, and we are your armchair analysts that will bring you some content about our favorite team, the Texas Longhorns. Hook 'em. Hey, Mac, let's start by introducing ourselves and letting our viewers know what made us Longhorn fans that we are today. Start with you, Mac.
Hey, so I'm Brandon McKinnon, diehard Longhorn fan ever since I was a little kid. I grew up in Colorado, so a lot of people find it kind of awkward because all my professional sports are Denver-based teams, and then Texas football is my college sport, and that's just due to my grandpa. Grew up on the helping work at the farm in the morning, and then watching Texas football in the afternoon. So, it's pretty big, pretty good times, and things of that nature. So. Um, that's just my passion and my love, and it's kind of transcended down to my kids as well. So it's nice to watch them grow up and live that environment. So that's me.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm from South Texas. My name is Pablo, but my close friends, everybody calls me Tony. Um, Military brat. I love the Longhorns ever since I was started walking. Really, when I was living in Hawaii, I would wake up 9 o'clock in the morning just to watch a Longhorn game, and I followed them all the way through from the years of. I actually, fun fact, I actually was kind of like undecided. I was for a very brief moment. I was a Texas A&M and a Texas fan. I loved the days of Quentin Coriat, Texas A&M, huge physical linebacker. And then as we got into the late '80s, we started getting into Pete Gardier. I always knew about um, um, Earl Campbell. Excuse me. I love the Houston Oilers, and then started transitioning into the Keith and Kerry Cash, the twins, and all the great Longhorns I came across, and I just never looked back. Loved the Longhorns, and of course that brings us uh, to this season, right? So what do so Matt, real quick, just put into perspective on your thoughts on this season and how it started, how it ended, and all your thoughts, man.
Yeah. So when you look at the Longhorns for 2025, you had your up and down turbulence, and it was coming off of a team that was built with talent, depth, and experience last year, coming out of that college football playoff loss to Ohio State. You knew there was going to be some initial setbacks, just getting a young team. And that's going to lead into some of my questions later on, is some explanations into those. But, when you look at it, the season started strong, and it had its turbulence, it had its rocky moments, but we really hit a momentum swing at a certain point, and then it led to that final game against our rival with A&M. Playing little brother at home. And that's like my moment of the year, like being able to have my kid experience his first DKR game, a night
Yeah,
game against a team
yeah,
like that. He's been to two other games with the SEC championship last year, and we went and watched him play in West Virginia, their last game against West Virginia, but nothing beat the environment that DKR brought. And when you look at like a play of the game or a moment for the team, I really think that was the Florida game. Even though
yeah,
we came out with a loss, at the end of the day, it gave us confidence going into that Red River the next game, followed by two overtime thrillers. That team really started to build momentum. Like, oh, I can play from behind. I can play with this SEC conference, and I think it really swung our team in that positive direction. All the way up till that Georgia game.
yeah, most definitely. To your point, the Texas A&M game, man, that was such an electric night. Um, Seeing you in Austin there, it was pretty cool. Now I've been to some games, the Alabama game, the Georgia game, the Clemson game, the last several years, and that was by far the loudest DKR has been in quite some time. If not the loudest I've been at that stadium, and it was just super. To cap it off with the big win. But for my my season in review, my best moment, best game. I think it was the resiliency that the team showed in the Kentucky Mississippi State stretch, right? Having to come back, winning overtime on the road. Arch really had to learn, and he had to really grow up quick to find ways to win. And this whole season, the Longhorns really they learned how to win in all aspects of every type of way in the game of football, right? Defense, offense, special teams, turnovers, just every which way you can learn how to win. Coming back from a deficit and not giving up. I think overall those two game stretches really defined our culture and what Arch is really built out of, right? Because that was that moment where Arch was, oh, he's not a Heisman hopeful, and everybody that built him up in the media were the same ones that were building him or were tearing him down, and he just went out and balled. He went out and balled every single day, and every single week, and it was awesome. It was awesome to see, and that's where we're at today with those moments. So yeah, that stretch was mine.
Yeah, I would agree, and I tell people all the time, yeah, coming out of the Florida game, we went into Red River. That's a game we could lose every game every year as long as we beat Oklahoma. It's a win on the
Yep.
season, and now you add A&M and Arkansas to the mix with our permanent conference games. Those are the three games we got to win every year.
Yeah.
Every other game could be a loss, but like you said, that little stretch right after with those Kentucky Mississippi States, I think really defined them.
Yeah, those are those letdown games, right? That what the sports fanatics call, hey, you're so high for that Oklahoma Red River rivalry game, and then how do you bounce back from that such a high, right? Um, so yeah, definitely some great moments, some great games. All right, let's talk about the worst moments of the season. What you got, Matt?
Yeah. So, I think the worst moments, is it's just the early on season. The early on season, I think, when you look at the play calling from across all spectrums and just the play, I think, Coach Sark kind of stepped out of his normal comfort zone of play calling. It wasn't the typical Sark style playing. And I think it was in a hopes to overprotect his like young line, young Arch Manning, but kind of failing to realize a lot of those linemen and Arch and all that, they sat 1-2 years behind those starters learning that same play style, and just to disrupt that typical play that they're used to, I think kind of created some of those offensive line struggles we had early in the season. And you look at the Ohio State game, is one of the worst moments. A lot of people say it's Florida. I think it's Ohio State, and the fact that we had a chance to put a one in their L column multiple times to start their season, and we didn't need to wait till the Big 12 championship to play Indiana to get their first L. So to me,
Yeah.
I think that's the moments of the season that kind of defined the overall season.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you. The Ohio State game, even though we outgained them, we out in every aspect. Um, it's just going on the road to the shoe the first week of the college football season. I think is a little bit more ambitious than even us arrogant Longhorn fans, right?
Yeah.
um, I just think scheduling didn't play out to our favor. Not that I'm not against scheduling the big boys, but because NFL and college are separate or different, and the fact that you have preseason games to kind of check out who you have on your roster as far as game speed, and you don't have that in college football. So going out to the horseshoe in a hostile environment like the shoe gives, it's kind of hard to overcome that, right? So yeah, and then the Florida game, right? Um, you know, everybody said we played really really bad. Well, Arch had a chance to win it there at the end. We were driving. we were driving. Uh, we're 8 points down, and we were driving to potentially score, and it just didn't work out for us. So I think another thing, just the play calling,
Yeah.
and just trying to figure out. Not, Sark is an offensive guru. There's no mistake from that. But not knowing what he had um, in the beginning, and trying to find his way with the system. And I think moving the quarterbacks coach up to the booth, that kind of helped, but it was a little bit too little, too late. And the last thing I would say was the effort against Georgia. That was just that's probably the all-time low on how we played. Um, I will always say this: Georgia and Alabama are the standard in the SEC. They were going, no matter what they do, they're going to bring physicality, and I think we never matched that. In the three games that we played against Georgia, we haven't figured it out. And if us fans can see that from a screen, the guys that get paid for it, they got to be able to see that. And I think Sark understood that, and that's why he hired Will Muschamp, right? And to bring that physicality to the 40 acres. So a lot to look forward to, um, based off our worst moments of the season.
Yeah,
You got
and
anything to add, man?
yeah, when you say the Georgia comment, it I got to see it kind of like two-folded, right? So I
Mhm.
got to see last season where I came down and watched the game with you, and Georgia just dominated all phases of that game.
Yeah,
And then, I got to go watch the SEC championship rematch, and we had the chances, but what
yep,
it came down to was the coaching standard of those two programs, like you said, is just the coaching standards.
yeah,
And when time mattered, they outcoached us. And that's what
yeah,
ultimately led to that defeat in the overtime game. They knew they had to do X and execute this, and that's exactly what happened.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, man. All right, let's get back to. All right, what are you most excited to see from the Longhorns in the Citrus Bowl?
Yeah, so with the Citrus Bowl, right? It's going to be I think it's the adaptation that the team's going to show. There's been so much changes over the last 2 weeks, and having the ability for leaders like a Colin Simmons to adapt and rally. I'm really curious what that defense does, because that defense really struggled for adjustments and coverage in games like Arkansas, where Taff was out. Taff is that adjustment coverage dude, and
Yeah,
when he was out, that defense lacked its ability to adjust coverages quickly, and it's just from all that experience that Taft brought to the field. And so I really think that, how does the team respond with coaches, players, and all the changes? As you're holding it up right there, who's declared for the draft, who's hit the transfer portal. From what I'm seeing, is Malik Muhammad still supposed to play in the bowl game? He has declared, but from what I'm seeing, he was on the last depth chart I saw.
yeah,
Whether or not that happens, we'll see. But I think that'll be a good thing for us in that bowl game.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see the young guys, man. We've talked about this offline. We talked about the bowl season outside of the college football playoff has now become the spring game for most
Mhm.
teams. And when you got 7 to 8 defensive starters opting out for the NFL draft or transfer portal, you're going to have a whole totally new off or defense, right? You're gonna have guys that have never worn that green sticker on their helmet. To mention Bo Barnes, Bo Barnes is a true freshman that's going to be playing a linebacker there. Brad Spence moving them from edge to coverage linebacker. So a lot of different new faces, a lot of new faces that are going to have to step in, and it's kind of like a rehearsal or a tryout for Will Muschamp and what he's going to have on tape. Um, I speaking or listening to the media press conferences with the defensive offensive coordinators, there's talk of Colin Simmons was playing linebacker. You know, if you really look at what Michigan does, they don't throw the ball a lot. You know, they rush, they run the ball. You're going to see a lot of um, um,
Dual
handoff
threat.
left, handoff right, hand up the middle. Right? They lost their defense or offensive coordinator. They lost their head coach. So they just got to simplify things. And they ran the ball really well throughout the season. So I'm excited to see the young guys, Bo Barnes, Justice Terry on the defensive side, Jonah Williams.
Hmm.
That's a sub topic that's leading into the offseason, right? Does he make a decision between football and baseball, right?
Yeah.
Will Muschamp, if you notice, he is all in on secondary. That is his baby.
Yep.
And if you don't show up to spring training, you're not going to be on the depth chart, right? And so Jonah Williams, the five star safety out of Port Arthur, or excuse me, Galveston, I think. He's
Yeah.
gonna he's got some decisions to make, right? So yeah, the young guys, Michael Terry from San Antonio, seeing how he does. I've heard he's been electric in the backfield. He's one of those guys that it's real twitchy, can run routes out of the backfield. So man, I'm looking forward. I know I would love to see some of these old guys like Ant Hill, Michael Taft, and some of those guys out there playing. But I'm really interested to see who are the next culture guys, right? Because we're talking about Michael Taft, Ant Hill, Malik Muhammad, Trey Moore. These guys are all culture guys, and Sark
Yep.
Sark knows that's what he stresses is culture.
Yep.
So that's what I'm interested to see. What else you got, man?
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at it, Will Muschamp, he sat as a defensive analyst for Georgia this year. So he got to
Yeah,
just sit there and study defenses all year. So
yeah,
he knows what that team's losing, but what he doesn't know, like you said, is what does that depth bring? Because not many times was our depth having to be displayed. It wasn't until that second half of that stretch with the Arkansas Georgia game that our depth really had to start to be displayed, and
yeah,
it kind of got a little exposed. So to your point, it's going to cause the Jonah Williams to commit one way or another. Do you want to be on a depth chart for baseball or a depth chart for the football field? But I think one of those impact players in this bowl game, you go back a few years ago to the Alamo Bowl, it was a Bijan Robinson. He wasn't the starter. We had some opt outs. Bijan came in and lit up the Alamo Bowl. What is
yeah,
what is Christian Clark gonna do? Once he's the one of the primary running backs, what is this young talented player gonna bring to this offense for this game?
yeah, yeah, man. Hey, shout out to Bijan. Man, what a game last night, huh? That
Yeah,
that 93-yard touchdown run. Fun fact, that is the longest play from scrimmage from a Longhorn player. And we're talking about Ricky Williams. We're talking about Earl Campbell. That is the longest run from scrimmage from a Longhorn player. Man, just he runs so smooth. I love him. He's awesome, and he's a great dude. He's a great character guy. Um, let's just hope they build a team around him, right? He's doing it
yeah,
all.
and it's one of those things too. It's crazy, when you look and you add up all of his rushing and receiving yards and all that. He has over 2,300 all-purpose yards. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of the touchdowns, but he's putting in the work.
Yeah.
And the fact he's not in an MVP conversation is simply because, like you said, there is no team built around him.
Mm-mm.
Because they're talking about the top two contenders being Drake May and Matthew Stafford. Yes, they're putting on a hell of a season too. But
Yeah.
when you look at Bijan, to have that as a running back, the last one that did that was a Derrick Henry, and he was 100% in the MVP conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're in an age of the spread offense, right? And everybody, it's about quarterbacks and wide receivers uh And when you have a multi-purpose back like Bijan was running better routes than some of his wide receivers
Yep.
last night. Some of those catches, wide receivers make those catches, right? So he's just been coached well. I think he's a student of the game. I think he's just a great guy, and um, he's I think he's the youngest. He's the has the most scrimmage yards. I think from what I saw, has the most scrimmage yards. He surpassed um, Christian McCaffrey for most scrimmage
Mhm.
yards at the age of 24.
Jeez.
So that's just impressive, man. Very impressive.
Yeah,
All
100%.
right. Um, let's see. Let's go to this one.
Yeah, so when I look at the Longhorns for next year, right, how do we
So,
survive the gauntlet of
hey Matt,
games?
real quick before we, I still want to. No, we can go with this. We can go with this. What do you want to see in the 2026 from the Longhorns? What do you got?
Yeah, so when I look at that, right, it's just how do we survive the gauntlet of games that we'll have next year? You know,
Man,
it is not the easy games, and and our ability to show out for the fans in Austin is we'll only leave DKR 4 times next year.
yeah,
And 3 of those 4 teams are extremely tough venues to play in. You got at
yeah,
A&M, at LSU, and at Tennessee.
yeah,
And when you look at it, even Nick Saban said it the last week of the season with Tennessee Vanderbilt. Nick Saban said, playing at Neyland Stadium is just deafening. It is a whole different environment, and crazy things happen in that venue. Um, so, what does that look like for us next year? Yeah, we play at home a lot against some big name schools, but the times we do have to leave the state of Texas, those are some big venues.
man. That back to back Tennessee, and then having to go up to Red River back to back.
Yep.
That's brutal. Um, LSU, Death Valley's that place is, if that's a night game. Oof.
Yep.
And then like you said, A&M. Wow, that's. But I think Arch 2026 will be primed, man. They will be primed, and I want to see. I'm with Sark. I'm with Sark. I think we need to go all in on the portal.
Yep.
We've talked about what's out there on the portal. And I think once we hit the Citrus Bowl, and the results of that, I mean, we got like a day and a half to catch our breath, and then January 2nd the portal opens. Right, you got Cam Coleman out there, you got Jaden Ball out there. So I want to see the Longhorns go all in, but I also want to see the new bunch, the new leadership, the new Ant Hills of the world, the Michael Taffs of the world. I want to see that group of players, and everyone's saying that this is going to be Arch's last year. Uh, Look, man, Arch doesn't need to go to the NFL. He's not, what I'm saying? Like he can he can after 2026, but there's no doubt, there's no, you know, his grandfather's, hey, if you don't have less than, what did he say? If you don't have less than 30 starts under your belt, you don't need to be going to the NFL, right? And
Yep.
so Peyton, they were all 3-year starters, man, all 3-year starters. So you know, but they will all be in for 2026. I think it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. I want to see that defense. I want to see what it looks like under Will Muschamp. Um, and some of the 2026 recruiting class coming in. Yeah, there's some lightning dudes. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm excited to see in 2026.
Yeah, when you look at it, I think when you talk, Arch, he said it in his media day for the Citrus Bowl. He said, why did you choose to stay and not go to the NFL? And it's like, because I have more to do here.
Yeah,
He is committed to that culture, and he knows that he has so much more to grow for development. He talked about his development, and you know, I think that interesting thing to watch for next year is going to be how much more, yeah, regardless of who they bring in the portal for receiver. You look at Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers had a couple stable receivers every year, and they'd bring in like one additional person, right?
Yeah,
But what does Arch look like after a whole season with Parker Livingston and Ryan Wingo? Let's add now another year of this,
yeah,
and
yeah,
let's add another dynamic threat receiver to this equation. And what does that look like for us?
yeah. And these guys got to realize, man, even though you're getting paid, that doesn't. There's Sark loves competition. Sark wants as many competitive dudes out there because was it iron sharpens iron, right? And that's
Yep.
the only way. That's the only way to go. If there's some social media posts about inside leaks of Georgia's practices, and they're going hard, man. They're not letting up on each other. You know,
Mm-mm.
that's what it takes. One versus ones. It's got to go. I understand there's a scout team and things like that, but when you go good on good, man, you're only going to get better. You're only going to get better. So yeah, totally agree. All right, the Texas Longhorns will win the Citrus Bowl if
Yeah. So, this is going to be a good matchup. We kind of talked about it earlier with Michigan's run game. Like, not only do they have a solid run game, they got a very good dual threat quarterback. And,
yeah,
that is one thing, where I think moving Simmons to a linebacker may be good. He has the speed, he has the ability to shift and change and almost spy Underwood. So, I think we win if we just play Texas football. We
yeah,
need to get back to the cool, calm, collected, putting the foot on the throat to apply the gas.
yeah,
But it's going to take the absolute play, hard work, and dedication of some very young, talented players.
yeah,
We lost some key contributors on both sides of the ball. And how do those, we talked it earlier, how do those young guys step up and contribute? This is their tryout. And if they view it as that, they're going to do exactly what Colin Simmons said. We're here to play the Cheez It Bowl. We're here to represent, and we're here to show out. And then Trevor Goodsby said, we're here to make a statement in his in his
yeah.
in his press statement. He said, "We're here to make a statement that this is a team that deserved to be where they're at and where they continue to be at." So I'm excited.
Yeah, man. No doubt. So I think Texas wins the Citrus Bowl if um, I think the offense has to come out clicking. They can't go three and out like they've done most of the games, right? They have to come out clicking. They have to move the ball, obviously, and that first possession scoring, whether it's 3 points or 7 points, I don't care. That's got to make the statement, all right. And then I'm a big last 4 minutes, first 4 minutes, right? The middle of the game. You got to win that.
Yep.
Um, I think uh, if Texas controls the game and stops the run, they have to stop the Michigan run and make what's his name, Blair Underwood.
Hmm.
Uh, they got to make him a thrower. I think we have the secondary. I think Grayson Littleton, those guys. Colin Simmons gets after him. If we go three and long, I think it's better for us. But if they just grind it out like a Big Ten team normally does, right, and they just have their way on the ground game, it's gonna be a long day for us. So we got to stop the run. The offense has got to click, and we got to score points. Um, third down conversions. Sark's got to. I think we've seen Sark get away from 4th and 3. I'm going to go for it rather than kick the field goal.
Yep.
He's in the last couple of games, he's taking those points, he's taking those field goals. So I think he trusts his kicker now, right? We don't have the Burt Auburns of the world anymore. So
Yep.
yeah, offense got to click right off the bat, and the defense has to stop the run.
I agree.
All right, game score predictions. What you got, man? All right, so let me lead into this. All right, so the Longhorns opened up as a 4.5 point favorite. Okay, that was, if I'm not mistaken, I've kind of tracked this trend here. 4.5 point favorites as soon as we found out that the team was playing Michigan, and then the turmoil of the head coach, that shot up to, I think it shot up. I want to say to 5.5.
Hmm.
All right, and then all the opt outs. I don't know how all our opt outs, um, on our side of the ball, that shot up to 8.5. So Vegas knew something about something, right? And
Yeah.
then now, it teetered down to 7.5, and just today it's now at 7 for the Longhorns. So, over and under, I think it opened up at 46.5. Now it's at 48.5. So what you got, man? What you think?
Uh, I think we're gonna start fast. I think we're gonna be able to control the ball, do what we need to do. Um, but I also think we're gonna give some points up. We got some inexperience out there. And I'm looking at more like a 34-17-21 ish area for Michigan. So we'll call it 34-21 Texas.
Okay. All right. I actually have 35-17. At 35-17 Texas. I think it's going to be close. I think uh, I think Michigan's going to be able to run the ball in the beginning.
Hmm.
I think Coach Jensen, the defense coordinator that's calling this game, I think he's going to be able to make the adjustments. I think they're going to sell out on the run, and I think they're going to make Underwood try to throw the ball and try to be one dimensional. And then of course Arch and the boys. I do think we will have one defensive touchdown. I'm calling it right now. We're going to have a defensive touchdown. We have so many defensive starters, new starters. You said it. Someone always rises up to the occasion in these bowl games. I'm calling it
Yep.
right now. We're going to have a defensive touchdown. It's going to be someone like Bo Barnes. It's going to be someone, uh, 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 Cade Phillips, right? Cade Phillips has been balling out. You know, so I do think it's I say 35-17, Texas wins. Um, and what are your final thoughts before we head out here?
Yeah, so I just, my final thoughts are, just looking at this bowl game, like, yeah, we have an interim DC calling the plays this week, but Muschamp's on ground. You
Yeah.
know, he's going to be at the game. So having that expertise and that mindset to help make those that middle the final four first four adjustments that we need to make, because everyone scripts the first 10 plays of each half. And
Mm-hmm.
what your 2 minute offense looks like. If you're on the field for a 2 minute offense, you know what that looks like. So what does that final four first four look like with adjustments? And yeah, we may not have someone used to being a DC, but we have some experience helping guide. Coach Sark just clearly said that it's not fair to him to come in and call someone else's play calls.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to the players to adjust so quickly to a new coach. But he's on ground and he's making, he'll be able to provide his insight, and I think that'll be key.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I my final thoughts are, anyone that says bowl games don't matter, they matter. They matter. Ask BYU and how hard they played against Georgia Tech, right? Those guys were flying around and just hitting everything, and it was accustomed to their culture and their head coach on how they approached the game.
Yep.
And so my final thoughts is, hearing the two coaches early this morning on their press conference. They're coming to win. Michigan may be down, but they ain't out. They're a blue blood, right? We don't expect a Michigan just to buckle over and not play. They got too much pride. There's too much history. There's too much pageantry coming from that school, and there's a lot to play for if you really think about it. The winner of this bowl game gets 10 wins, and you can look at it any way you want, but when you look back at it and you see Sark 3 years in a row have 3 10-win seasons, at least 10 wins, that's going to say something, right? And then it catapults you into the spring and spring practice and the recruits, and not only just recruits, but you got junior days coming up after the transfer portal. It means a lot. It means a lot to these players. It means a lot to the fans. So I think both both teams are going to bring it. I think I think we're going to see a I think we're going to see the physicality that we've been wanting to see. When Sark normally has a long time to prepare, we usually see some crazy plays,
Oh yeah,
right? We see some
100%.
we see some crazy plays, and I think they've been on rest, what, 20? I want to say it's like 25 days or something like that. So
Yep.
um, they got some stuff up their sleeves. So yep. All right, man. We're gonna wrap it up. Just want to say thanks, Mac. Thanks for doing this with me. Hopefully, this gets, as we continue to do this, it gets even better. Get some guest speakers on here, some guests that we know that are friends, except during rivalry week, and we talk trash to them and everything. But maybe we can get them on board, and yeah, man, hook them.
Yeah, hook 'em.